Hi everyone, I'm Tony Parisi. I'm acting as a proxy gateway for Mark Pesce. He is actually in Sydney right now and passes on his regrets that he can't be here. I'm going to talk to you about Mark's new prototype for an online service called Mixed Reality Service and a set of protocols for multi-user AR and potentially VR. About 22 and a half years ago, Mark and I, two youngsters in San Francisco, pulled together enough money to send Mark to the first ever World Wide Web conference in Geneva, to have Mark attend a birds of a feather session that was about exactly this size, to show off what became VRML. It was a spinning model of a banana. That was the only model we had in OBJ format. And when you clicked on it, it had a little rollover cursor, and it hyperlinked, and when you clicked on it, it went to CERN's website, because there were only about 5 websites in the world at that point. And it was running on a blindingly fast 60 megahertz Intel 486 processor over a 9600 baud modem. So just to put it all in context. The interesting thing about that was we've kind of come full circle, because all of that modeling demonstration and all the stuff we were doing that became VRML was actually supposedly for us going to be a waypoint toward creating some networking standards for an emerging metaverse. Mark's been watching VR explode again on the consumer front, doing a bunch of things in Australia. And then he had this pin drop moment after Pokemon Go. We all know how awesome Pokemon Go is. Amazing things can happen. It's delighted millions of people. But guess what? This actually really happened. Folks were outside of Auschwitz-Birkenau in Poland trying to collect up freaking chimchars or whatever they have in Pokemon Go. And the curators of the museum begged Niantic to take that content out of there. This is the set of problems Mark wants to address with a simple little decentralized distributed protocol he calls Mixed Reality Service. It's very simple in concept. It's sort of like DNS. It translates 3 space into URIs. So there's read and write operations for populating a database. Who owns permissions on all that is TBD. Some of this depends on if you own the land, for example. And we're not going to talk about that today. We're simply going to tell you about the protocol a little bit, because we have a lightning talk. We don't have a lot of time. By the way, Mark is on the MRS on the Slack team right now. It's a channel called MRS. So you can send him live questions. He can answer you there. So very simple protocol. There's an add operation that lets you define data that you place into the database with a lat long. The float field says whether or not this is private data for only you. So if you have read-write permission for that stuff, fine. But nobody else can read it publicly. So basically, you could do a query against this, and we'll talk about queries in a second, to search. And either this result won't come up, or it'll come up and say it's private. This is sort of implementation dependent at this point. You get it back a JSON response that says this thing was added. That's simple, and it's intended to be decentralized. Who the authorities are and how that is all distributed are details TBD. And then, delete is basically a reverse of that if you have write permissions. And then there's a search operation. I'm going to give you a lat long and a range, basically a geodata kind of query. And I'm going to get back data, and it's going to be a set of URIs. And those URIs, how they're actually interpreted is totally to be determined. Mark's actually working on a different set of protocols or definitions around what he calls MRSE, which is a service enumeration that just says, okay, this is how you interpret this URI. It could be a full-on multiplayer server, or it could be as simple as serving up, say, a URL. So we're going to go to a demo really quick. Let's see here. Let me just get out of here, I guess. 1 minute? 1 minute, you said?
1 minute, yeah.
All right, here we go. Just enough time for a demo. So this is actually searching for our current location with a default range of 1 kilometer, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm getting a hierarchical return back. Mark did a couple of entries because desktop browsers aren't particularly accurate on the lat longs versus, say, mobile browsers. There's a wide range there, so he fudged the database a little bit. We see we're California and San Jose. We're at Samsung's building, and Mark left me a little present. He actually placed this 3D object there using MRS, and there it is. It's the banana, good old historical gift for us. I think that's supposed to link to CERN, but I'm not seeing it actually click. And that was done in X3D and X3DOM, so that's an old Verma model, actually. Anyway, we think the world needs this. This is the very beginnings of this stuff. Hit Mark up on the Slack, and thank you very much.